I call to order this Henderson County Board of Public Education Board meeting, October 10th, 2022. We're going to have a presentation of colors by the West Henderson High School Army JROTC. Would all please stand for the presentation of the flag, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Yeah, once again, that was the West Henderson High School Army JROTC under the direction of Lieutenant Colonel Randy Little. First up, we've got is agenda approval. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda is approved. All right, program highlights, sharing the good news. Mr. Mark Garrett.
We have a lot of good news this evening. This is our of the year ceremony. So across the district for the 22-23 school year, there are lots of the years to celebrate. We have them tonight, so I'm going to go to the podium. So our first of the year is our newest named one, and that is Shannon Alton, our 2022-2023 Principal of the Year. So Ms. Alton, if you'll join me. Congratulations. So Shannon Alton is the principal of Henderson County Early College and Henderson County Career Academy in the Innovative High Schools building on the Blue Ridge Community College campus. Each school year, the Principal of the Year is nominated by and voted on by his or her peers. So the other 22 principals in the district were the ones that gave Shannon this nod, giving special significance to the designation. Ms. Otten does a wonderful job leading two separate schools, and both recently received high marks on the state accountability system. Her ability to build positive relationships with students, staff, and the community is one of her greatest assets. So, Ms. Alton, we're certainly proud of you. They could not have made a better choice, and we know that you've got a lot to celebrate. We actually were able to surprise Ms. Alton with the entire school, and both the upper deck and the lower deck were full, and she was genuinely shocked, I think, when she walked in. So it's one of the better kept secrets. Secrets are always hard to keep around the school district. They never keep, but we were able to keep this one. So Shannon, I don't know if you want to make any comments. You're welcome to, or you can just turn and wave and smile and take all the glory. So congratulations, Shannon. You have a certificate? Great picture of her and her family. They got to surprise her as well that day. Next up is our reigning 2022 Teacher of the Year, Karen Whiting. So Karen, can you come on up? So Ms. Whiting is a fourth grade ELA and social studies teacher at Glen Marlowe. I feel very sorry for her. I have a fourth grader, so I feel your pain teaching fourth grade. And he's the baby, so we're doing the best we can, but we'll see. But she's at Glen Marlowe and was named the Henderson County Public Schools 2022 Teacher of the Year in May. Now in her 10th year teaching at Glen Marlowe, Whiting is a treasured member of the Marlowe Mustangs family and especially beloved by her students. Her teaching philosophy extends beyond the classroom and guides her leadership in various clubs and extracurricular activities at Marlowe. Serves on the school's STEM committee, co-leads the Marlowe Run Club, which is open to any student or staff member, and currently has 75 students involved. And she coordinates the annual Marlowe's Got Talent show. I hope I get an invitation to that. That sounds good. And helps with the theater department at West Henderson High School whenever she can. I don't know how you have time for that, but we certainly appreciate your commitment. I know that, have you done your interview? Her interview for the Regional Teacher of the Year is Wednesday, so we need to send some love her way on Wednesday and some positive energy. And we know you'll probably bring that title right back to Henderson County. If not, they need to reevaluate. So we're certainly excited and certainly proud of you, so congratulations. Next is our 2022-2023 Beginning Teacher of the Year, Ms. Brianna Clayton.
Thanks.
That's right. Everybody get photos. We've got plenty of time for photos. So Brianna is an exceptional children's teacher at Hendersonville Middle School, and she was named the Henderson County Beginning Teacher of the Year for 2022-2023. She's a proud product of HCPS, where she is a graduate of East Henderson High School. That's right, I was waiting on that. She received her Bachelor of Arts in Communication from NC State University.
Go Wolfpack.
There we go. Not only has she excelled in her first year of teaching, but she also works with 2 different mentor programs, coaches a school sport, and teaches summer school. So the Becoming Bearcats program and the Marable Mentorship program have significant impacts on Henderson Middle School students. And I was able to see some of the Becoming Bearcats program earlier this year and super impressed with how well those 8th and 6th graders were working together. And I think seeing your excitement and your smile is outstanding. So certainly we're proud of you. She now moves on to compete for the NCAT Beginning Teacher of the Year competition that will take place later in the year. And she'll have a chance to do some professional development at NCAT with that. And we'll see how she does. So certainly, we know you'll represent us proud. We're certainly excited to have you as our Beginning Teacher of the Year. So congratulations. Next is our 2022 Exceptional Children's Educator of Excellence for this school year, and that's Miss Dina Rashcover. Miss Rashcover? So Ms. Rashcover is an EC teacher at Upward Elementary School and will represent Henderson County at the statewide annual conference in November in Greensboro. She has dedicated many years of her life to the service of her students and their families. In the 30 years she has been an EC teacher, she has served 15 of those with Henderson County Public Schools. In addition to teaching in her classroom, she sponsored the Girls on the Run Club to provide an extracurricular opportunity for Upward students who need a connection with a caring adult and an activity to be part of. She's also mentoring a beginning teacher and is still maintaining the EC paperwork, which we all know how that is.
Good times.
That's right, good times. It's called a growth opportunity for her students. So certainly we know your dedication long-term for public education, but especially here in Henderson County, and we're grateful for your service, and we wish you the best as you get a chance to move on to Greensboro. So congratulations. The 2022 Media Coordinator of the Year is Miss Jessica Abel.
Jessica's my sister, so it's close.
Hey, we did get it correct on the form. Sorry.
It is my sister, so.
And I see you got your purple.
I do.
That's right. So Jennifer, on here, we had it right, just not the title. Jennifer Abel, the Media and Technology Coordinator at North Henderson High School, is the HCPS Media Coordinator of the Year. She is an alumni of North Henderson, very dedicated to North Henderson. If you have not had a conversation with her, that is very evident, and has been the school's Media and Technology Coordinator for over a decade. You'll find her not only in the Media Center, but also driving a bus. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Absolutely. And helping around the school. I think you get to coordinate lunch and do all kinds of
I do a lot,
crazy
yeah.
things, yes. Peers from Henderson County's 23 schools nominate and vote for the Media Coordinator of the Year. Nominations must be members of the North Carolina School Library Association. The NCSLMA is a professional organization dedicated to supporting, promoting, and empowering school librarians across the state as they transform their school communities. Ms. Abel is not only a member, but she is the president of the association. So thank you for that service. And I think in getting to celebrate with her a couple of weeks ago, what stood out is the young lady that helps you in the library was just so excited and said, there's nobody better than Miss Abel. There's just nobody better. So I know it's great to have your peers nominate, but that is the endorsement that we all seek. So congratulations, Jennifer. Next up is the 2022 CTE Teacher of the Year, Mr. Gary Blackwell. Mr. Blackwell is an agriculture teacher at North. He established himself as a leader in the school for the past 15 years. He has worked hard to establish a robust agriculture program and an active Future Farmers of America, or FFA, chapter that has successfully competed at the state level under his leadership. He's not only cultivated a strong ag program at NHHS, but also has become the de facto leader among all Henderson County CTE teachers. He takes young or inexperienced CTE teachers throughout the county, not just at North, under his wing to show them the ropes regarding competitions, curriculum, and CTE procedures. Even teach them how to get buses and all that stuff about activity buses. In its first year of existence, advancing the profession one new teacher at a time, which is something we all know is valuable. In its first year of existence, NCAT CTE Teacher of the Year program offers district-level nominees the opportunity to engage in professional development throughout NCAT and Cullowhee, where Blackwell competed against teachers from other districts for the honor of NCAT Teacher of the Year. So he was in the top 22 out of the 115 districts, and 10 of those were actually agriculture teachers who were finalists, and the winner actually was an agriculture teacher from Currituck County. But I think we all know it should have been an agriculture teacher from Henderson County. So Mr. Blackwell, thank you for also being a fellow UT alum. It's nice to not be the only one in the district.
Go Vols.
And that's right, go Vols. Especially this year, we're happy. But certainly the connections you make with your students. And I tell you what, I'm most impressed is how you not only advance North, but you're advancing Henderson County. So thank you for your leadership and congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Our 2022 Math Teacher of the Year is Miss Kara Brock. Ms. Brock? So Ms. Brock is a fourth grade teacher at Hendersonville Elementary. Her leadership in math, understanding of the value of productive struggle. I'm glad to hear productive struggle. A lot of my math was just struggle. And her commitment to producing students skilled at mathematical thinking and problem solving is to be commended. And I think one of the things that impresses me about our elementary math folks is a lot of times you take that fear away from kids and that nervousness away from kids, and even your colleagues, I think you probably get a chance to help work and mentor as well. As recognition of her achievements, she will attend the North Carolina Council of Teachers of Mathematics State Math Conference in November of 2022, and I guess it's in Greensboro as well. Typically it is. So thank you for not only the honor, but for representing us so well at the math conference. So Ms. Kara Brock, congratulations. And our last honoree could not be here. Melanie McMurray is our 2022 School Nurse of the Year. She's at North Henderson High School. She works endlessly to ensure all students are safe and healthy. The Health Department, in partnerships with PS named her the 2022 School Nurse of the Year in May. And when we talk about she works endlessly, she's actually doing a flu clinic right now. So that's why she was not able to be here. And she sent her appreciation. She also sent a nice little note and apologized for not being here. And we said, you're doing the work you need to do. So congratulations to Ms. McMurray. So let's give her a clap. And if we could we get everybody up for a picture real quick? Yeah, get one picture here.
You want us to bring our
Absolutely.
Come on, bring them on
Bring
down.
your hardware. If you want to go up, wherever you want to take it. I mean, we've got it. I guess we might as well use it. Folks, it's a good time while the organizers come up and take the picture. Come close. We'll take the time. Tawana, did you want to get in the picture?
Thank you all for your service over the past few years. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And that concludes my portion, but it's always wonderful when we get to celebrate our colleagues like this. So wanted to take that opportunity. So thank you, everybody, for indulging us.
Thank you.
Right. Let's get into the other stuff. First up, board chair observations. I'm going to pass. Board member observations. Anybody from this room like to say anything profound? Anybody on this side of the room? This case? All right. Next up is going to be public comments. Our first person up, we've got 3 folks today, is going to be Chris Walters. We'll get 3 minutes once you get up here. And you get to talk to us about whatever you want. Mr. Chris Walters, welcome back, sir.
Thank you, thank you. Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Good afternoon. I want to start talking about what I left off a few months ago about talking about race. And I want to mention a few items under the heading of racial violence from the Equal Justice Initiative. And then I'll just read a few of those and then talk to you some about that organization in Alabama. This is from the EGI Equal Initiative calendar. A black man named Luther Holbert and an unidentified black woman are tortured, mutilated, and burned alive in front of 600 picnicking white spectators in Doddsville, Mississippi. A mob of more than 1,000 white people riots outside public housing project in Detroit, Michigan, to prevent black families from moving in. A mob of 2,000 white people lynches Eli Piggott in Brookhaven, Mississippi. In Greenville, South Carolina, a mob of white men lynches Willie Earl, slashing chunks of flesh from his body before blasting him with a shotgun. 31 men charged with murder are later acquitted. Reverend Isaac Simmons, a black man, is lynched in Amite County, Mississippi, by 6 white men who won his family's land. His family flees the area under threat of violence. It's just a tiny bit of that history here. But I want to read to you about this organization called the Equal Justice Initiative and how they're working to educate us on our history. This is from the EJI. We must truthfully confront our history of racial injustice before we can repair its painful legacy. EJI has been challenging racial injustice in criminal and civil cases for over 30 years. American history begins with the creation of a myth to absolve white settlers of the genocide of white Americans, the false belief that non-white people are less human than white people. This belief in racial hierarchy survived slavery's abolition, fueled racial terror lynchings, demanded legally codified segregation and spawned a mass incarceration crisis. The dehumanizing myth of racial difference endures today because we do not talk about it. EJI has been working to change that. We're exposing the myth and its toxic legacy in our reports and videos. Beginning in the 17th century, millions of African people were kidnapped, enslaved, and shipped across the Atlantic to Americas under horrific conditions. Nearly 2 million people died at sea during the agonizing journey. I'm going to jump ahead here. In many communities like Montgomery, Alabama, which by 1860 was the capital of the domestic slave trade in Alabama, there is little understanding of the slave trade, slavery, or the long-standing effort to sustain the racial hierarchy that slavery created. In fact, an alternative narrative has emerged in many Southern communities that celebrates the slavery era, honors slavery's principal proponents and defenders, and refuses to acknowledge or address the problems created by the legacy of slavery. Okay, I'm not telling you what you're supposed to teach about our history, how you're going to teach it. That's not my job. I'm just a former teacher, and I can tell you that when I was teaching about race, I didn't know much at the time when I was a teacher, but everybody supported me, and I hope there's no intimidation, and I hope there's lots of support for people trying to get to the truth. And EJI, I'll send that to you in an email if people want to look at it more. But I think it's valuable, and it's probably within driving distance here. Thanks so much. Bye.
All right, next up is going to be Chuck Palmer. Chuck Palmer, perfect. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. This is going to be a little trivial compared to that, I guess. But I've been living in Henderson County for about 40 years almost, and all three of my girls graduated from Henderson County Public Schools. And when they got to college, man, were they well prepared. I just wanted to thank you for that. While I'm up here, I'm going to kill a couple birds here with one stone. I really wanted to tell you how proud I was of the way that you guys handled the pandemic mess that came through here. I felt like Henderson County was one of the kind of shining examples of the way it should have gone. And I know, I came to some of these meetings and I can't even believe what you guys have had to put up with. But there are people out there that are proud of what you're doing and thankful that you were, careful and deliberate and thoughtful about it. But the main reason I'm here is, I'm a retired teacher. I used to work in Henderson County Public Schools some. And so now that I've got some time off, I'm doing some substitute teaching, and I've been up in Buncombe County for a couple of years doing substitute teaching. I know. I live in Henderson County, and but I just wanted to kind of bring to your attention on the off chance that you didn't realize that this was the case. I got some friends who are teachers in Henderson County Public Schools, and they're all the time bugging me. We can't get subs. Can you please give us a break and become a sub in Henderson County Public Schools? So I went to the website, went through the process, hours of trying to go through I was really surprised at how many clicks it took to just get through the process. But then I get to the end of the very last step in applying as a substitute, and there's this training that you have to take online. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but in order to become to be considered for a substitute teacher in Henderson County, apparently there's a video online training that you have to take. And this training, they are charging the applicants money to take this training. And I mean, in my entire career as a working adult, I've never had a business charge me for taking training on the off chance I might get the job there. And of course, I'm thinking to myself, in this market, man, we need to be begging people. So I'm here tonight to say, in case you didn't know that this was happening, and it doesn't get reimbursed, I was told. And so you might want to take a look at that. I'm just here to kind of try to help because, I feel like if money's going to be involved, I would recommend maybe paying the people who, like when I got to be a sub in Buncombe, we had like a day's training that we went to personally, and they paid you a day sub to go to that. So it was kind of like the opposite. So my recommendation is maybe take another look at that and see if maybe it can help bring subs in. I know if we change that policy, you'll get at least one more, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Palmer. And last up is going to be Miss Katie Gash. welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman and Mr. Superintendent and the members of the board. A couple of weeks ago, I had the pleasure of speaking to Mr. Garrett about issues related to equity in education. Mr. Garrett, thank you so much for chatting with me. As we know, the gaps we see are not unique to Henderson County, and I really appreciated our conversations about the timing, the pace, the urgency, and the direction of our collective efforts in this area and the nuanced challenges we meet when trying to address them. What sparked my wanting to meet with Mr. Garrett and to address you, the board, were, one, the most recent school performance data, once again, as it does every year, showing the incredibly wide gap between the proficiency of white students and their peers of color. And two, this year's absence of the implicit bias training option that was offered to teachers in last year's beginning of the year PDs. Mr. Garrett allowed me to share my concerns and my experiences, and I was encouraged by his genuine expressions of support and his vast experience at the highest level regarding efforts to ensure equity within our schools. Sir, you asked me to think creatively about ways to move our district forward, how we can get from where we are to where we need to be, and how we can get all educators and instructional leaders on board. In my opinion, there are training sessions that need to happen. There are approaches that need to be changed and paradigms that need to be shifted. There are biases that need to be confronted and uncomfortable conversations that need to be had. And the data that we need to seriously sit with and allow it to inform our way forward. We will need to get input from our stakeholders, from our families, from our students, from our teachers, and from our communities. But here are some thoughts that came to me. I'm reminded that we're not starting from scratch. Let us continue what has been started. Please continue to offer workshops and PD opportunities at the school and district level that focus on equity in education. Within the last 2 years, administrators attended a half-day REI groundwater training, which I believe was very well received. Also, a district-wide invitation went out to all teachers, inviting them to sign up for a 4-session Dialogues on Racial Justice workshop. I took advantage of this opportunity, and it was very beneficial. Even if many choose not to participate, just seeing the invitation come from our leaders in central office and seeing words like equity and racial justice and implicit bias used by district-level administrators and school leaders gives them legitimacy and helps to build capacity for future conversations. The message needs to be clear, consistent, and come from on high. I know we say we must wait for the time to be right. And here's a Martin Luther King Jr. quote that I'd like to share that I'm sure you're familiar with. Time itself is neutral. It can be used either destructively or constructively. Human progress never rolls in on wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts of men willing to work, men and women willing to work. And without this hard work, time itself becomes an ally of the forces of social stagnation. We must use time creatively in the knowledge that the time is always ripe to do what is right. And I know I've overstepped my time limit, but as my principal, Miss Allison, is here, I just wanted to say that there's one thing she told us once, and she said, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And so I just want to make sure that we focus on what needs to change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cash. All right, up next is consent agenda. I need to make a change to the consent agenda as was emailed to you guys. We're going to be removing Part D as that was a relic from last year. Leadership team contract addendum. So with that being scratched off the consent agenda, I will take a motion on the rest of it.
I move we approve. I move we approve the consent agenda items A, B, C, and E as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, old business. Let's get into the fun stuff here. Calendar draft discussion. Okay. So I'll lead us off here. What you guys have in front of you, or that's linked, is going to be the calendar that some of us believe would be the most appropriate calendar for Henderson County Public Schools. And let me preface it by saying this. Right now, based on the state legislature, the first date that we could start based on the current law that's on the books is August 28th of 2023. What that would do if we started on the 28th was really push our first semester that really affects our high school kids the most deep into January, where they would only be able to take their exams 22nd, 29th, somewhere around there to finish their first semester. That would also, Matthew, if you scroll up, please. That would also push our end date, keep going to the end of May. This calendar would have us ending May 24th with some PD days and some required days there for our teachers at the end of May. But our students would be leaving school at the end of May instead of second week of June-ish, somewhere around there.
The last day for students will be June 7th on the 2024 calendar.
On the June 20th.
traditional.
So you got an extra 2 weeks, essentially.
It's a 2-week shift.
2-week shift. And so this board has talked about this ad nauseum for the past couple of years on what's best for our students. And we believe that we know what's best for our students as far as the calendar goes. North Carolina legislature does not believe that we know what's best for our students. So several school systems this year took it upon themselves, I think it was 3, Mr. Campbell, was it 3, 4? School systems, 4, decided to go against the state calendar law, and they started August 14th or 15th of this year. And so we kind of watched as that has kind of played out. Nothing's really happened. There hasn't been anything from the state legislature or from North Carolina DPI or anything of that nature. And next up, Charlotte-Mecklenburg, the second largest school district in North Carolina with how many kids do they have there?
Roughly 150 to 160.
150, 160,000 kids, along with Gaston County and several other counties, have said, next school year we are starting on August 14th so that we can finish our semester, line it up better with our community colleges and our communities. We can finish our semester before Christmas break, finish exams, start fresh when we come back in January, get out the 24th-ish or before June. We're not trying to keep students in all year round. We're just trying to start a little bit earlier so that we can finish a little bit earlier. Makes perfect sense, right? But for us to be able to do that, we have to essentially break the law. Now, most of the time, Mr. Campbell, you went to law school for a long time, so I'm sure you could correct me on this if I'm wrong. But typically a law has to have some type of punishment that goes along with it if it is broken. Usually, that's a
Criminal law.
that's an
has to
attorney
have-
answer right
Criminal
there.
law has, there are lots of statutes that do not discuss what the remedy would be if they're violated. Lots.
Okay, so as of right now, there doesn't seem to be anything that has happened to any of these school districts, and nor has the legislature come out and said anything that would happen to these school districts if they started earlier. I think the fear was from camp associations, from the tourist industry down east, they would lose some of their employees, i.e. our high school kids, if they had to come to school earlier, and they feared that they would have to stay late into the summer and they wouldn't have anybody to be there to work for them. So a couple of years ago, we received a letter from the Camp Association. This board went and talked to them, discussed what we were wanting to accomplish, and they said, yeah, as long as you don't start before the week of August 15th, we're fine with it. Because the vast majority of the kids that are coming to camp that time anyways are from out of state, right? So they didn't really, and they wrote us a letter and everything. So this year, we had a very robust discussion with the same 7 people last year about this. And we want to get ahead of the curve this year. We typically don't approve our calendars until January-ish, is that it? Somewhere around there? And so we wanted to go ahead and get out in front of this and give this to our families and let them know what our intentions are if the board, well, if at least 4 people agree. So that's a really long synopsis of the situation. I would like to open the floor up to anyone else that wants to dive into it.
So,
If I might add, my apologies, but so this draft calendar is simply taking this year's traditional calendar, backing it up 2 weeks and applying it to next year. So this is not anything that we've had input on. This is not anything, the professional development days aren't set. So basically what we put together for the board to consider or to discuss this evening is what the start date would look like, what the end date would look like, and some of the generalities around the normal breaks that we would have. But please, anybody watching, let's not get hung up on the actual details located within this calendar. We've just got the start and the end date.
And just to make your discussion easier, based on what the superintendent has just said, if you do move forward with action, it probably should be to ask the administration to go ahead and formulate a calendar with this start date, and don't go any further than that, so that there isn't an actual calendar approved, but to approve the formulation of a calendar with this start date.
Because we want to make sure we let our committee do their work.
Right. Absolutely. Ms. Holt?
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand what the objections are from the east. So if we started on August 14th, we would get out probably the same like June 7th, right? So we'd be taking adding 2 more weeks onto the year? Or would we get out 2 weeks earlier? So they would have our kids for summer work the same exact amount of time?
Yeah, typically that wouldn't affect anybody down east because most of our kids aren't going to head to Wilmington to go work for the summer, but maybe some do. I don't know.
Well,
But yes.
legislators sit in the east.
They do. But yeah, it's a very rhetorical question, but it's a perfect one. We are not trying to keep kids longer. We are trying to, number one for me is lining up with a community college calendar. It makes it very difficult. You know, those kids can get into those community college classes that first semester, but that second semester becomes really difficult because, you know, they start on time. And if you miss a class or two, then you pretty much failed it. And so, yes, we would be going to school the same amount of time. We would not be adding same hours, same days. The days might be different just depending on how the holidays line up, but instructional hours, everything would be the same. We would not be adding additional time onto the calendar.
Mr. Craven?
Yes,
Are
sir.
you going to have any parental influence or input on this calendar?
Will we have any what?
Parental influence?
I mean, I don't plan on it. I think that we were elected to make these decisions, and I feel like that's our job.
Now, every year, though, it goes before the SPAC. and
Yeah, we have the SPAC
those parent
committee
Representatives weigh in on
and
it.
STAC, right?
Yeah, and the
SPAC,
teachers,
STAC,
yep.
We have a calendar committee which
Yep.
consists of, a variety of stakeholders, and we're certainly not talking about overlooking that process.
No, ma'am. But, typically what that does, Dr. Revis, is that's looking at, okay, should we take, you know what I don't see in here, what I like a lot, is a lot of half days. But, do we take the DPD, the development day on October 13th? Or is it better to do it on the 23rd? Or that April 1st date, is it better to take it on? Usually it's those dates that we're worried about, those development days.
Well, that's because we've always had parameters, and we have decided to stick within the law on those parameters. But I would think on this situation where you're going outside of your state requirements or state legislation, that we would need to have a lot of discussion around a lot of those dates. I've been in calendar committees before when they even decided, no, we want to go a little later in December to have an extra day or two in January. So I would hope that, particularly if we're going outside the legislation and the requirements, that, number one, we make sure our teachers and our staff and our parents understand all that, and that we give them ample opportunity to look at everything, not just, do we want to make this a PD day or make this no. They need to have an opportunity to look at all the days and weigh in on it. Of course, we do make the final decision.
Yes, ma'am. I think the main thing that this board's really talking about is starting on the 14th or starting on the 28th of August. Because everything's going to flow off of that. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, I have 6 students right now who are graduating first semester, and we could not apply for them to start college second semester because school is not over and they have to be at college, and it's January 8th. So it's just, there are so many reasons why August 28th makes no sense.
Right.
Well, and I'm the one who started this screaming back probably 3 years ago, when Lauren graduated after first semester. And she was particularly wanting to sign up at Blue Ridge and start the cosmetology program. And she could not because it was a week and a half earlier than what we got out. And there was no workaround for it. There wasn't that she could start, late spring. She couldn't start during the summer. She had to wait for the fall. And it was just asinine to me that we have these calendars that are so far apart, and she lost, 8 months of an education pretty much. She just went to work in a restaurant because there was no fix for this. And I just kept asking why can't we do this? Why isn't it right? And I same answer I heard every single time. Phil Berger, Phil Berger, Phil Berger. One person has a hang up and a God complex about when we're going to do, because I'm going to call spade what it is. It's him, and he says, you bring me a new calendar, I'm throwing it in the trash. We're not starting any earlier. And he is the only one down there that is playing that game with all of our children, all of our students. We have 13,000 of them here, and we can't make decisions because it's not what Phil Berger wants.
Agreed. Ms. Case?
I've been against this kind of calendar ever since it started years and years ago, because as a teacher, you have to come back after Christmas and do testing.
So wait, you're for this calendar, but against the calendar we're doing now?
Right.
Right, okay.
And it kills testing. You got to come back and reteach and, review. And also, it's not fair, because when we started the 90-minute periods, that was one of the things, was they could get out and go on to college. Well, after the first semester, this has killed that, whether it's going to college or Blue Ridge, and I think this is still with Blue Ridge's calendar.
Yes, ma'am,
And
we would.
so this new calendar is something that's going to help both the testing and the kids being able to go to college.
Yes, ma'am.
And the kids that are dually enrolled, we've been talking about the kids that graduate, after first semester. But our kids that don't graduate, our juniors and seniors that take community college classes, cannot finish up their first semester in testing by the time the second semester starts in their college classes. And so they just have to sit it out.
So on the current calendar, that starts on the 28th. That ends halfway through June.
For students, it's usually the first full week of June. You have to graduate by the 10th or 11th of June.
So it'd be going into June for them to get out of school.
Yes.
To finish with school. And also, I think I was part of that when we brought the camps in. We were discussing in somebody's office up there, and I don't remember who else was there, but I think Representative Chuck McGrady was involved, and he's now the NCDOT regional representative for Western North Carolina, and he owns a couple camps, correct? He's a pretty important person, and he was fine with this. So I mean, there are a lot of positive reasons why this makes sense, and not just for the kids being able to continue their education and not having sometimes all of January reviewing and taking exams. So I just, I look at Cabarrus and Gaston and Charlotte Meck and Rutherford, and I mean, that's probably 200,000 at least. I don't know the numbers, but kids that they view as, that's the right thing to do for their children. And I just think that it makes sense for Henderson County to do, to follow, but, it's up to the board, and that's why we're having this discussion.
Dr. Evans?
Well, guys, I'm not going to say everything I've said last month. You know how I feel. You know why I feel the way I do. But I do believe this is best for children. I do believe. But also, I believe what is also that I have to live with and what is best for me is I'm not gonna break the law. Now, I'm not gonna go in, I'm not gonna preach a sermonette like I did last time, okay? I'll save everybody that time and energy, but I'm one voice. But I just wanna lay down at night knowing that I did what I felt like was true to my moral compass, okay?
Yes, ma'am. All right, so if it pleases the board, what I'm hearing most of the board, I don't think we need to take a vote, or do we? What I was gonna say is having, staff basically tell DPI that we are planning to start with a calendar that starts early, because that seems to be the way that other folks are taking this, that this is our intentionality. Or how do you wanna, what is the best way to go about this, counselor?
Sure.
What's the best way to break the law?
I respectfully refuse to answer Dr. Revis's specific question. The best way for the board to proceed, given your discussion.
Yes, sir.
You do not have to take action under the law until there is a calendar to vote on.
Okay.
I think that the superintendent has heard that there is a consensus of the board that would like the administration to put together a calendar that would start the second week in August and bring it back to the board, following your normal processes through a calendar committee. So if you want to take a vote, it would be a vote for purposes of sending that message and taking that stand, but there's certainly no legal requirement to take a vote yet. The administration can bring you back a calendar.
The only requirement that you have is we have to report by March what our calendars are going to be.
To DPI.
To DPI. There's a form that you fill out, so that's what you have to have done.
And haven't, like some of the other school systems, they have sent up to DPI, this is what we're planning to send you.
They essentially have made public statements that that is their intent to start on the 14th next year. Yes, sir.
Well, let's make a public statement that this is our intent.
I think so too, because strength is in numbers, and if us saying that gives 10 more districts that push to do what's right for kids, then let's do it.
I've talked to several parents, excuse me, I got a bad cold, but they're all in favor of this, and I am too.
Perfect. Well, let's announce our intent. Let's direct staff to go ahead and start working with those various groups, calendar groups, Stacks Back, to start working off of an August 14th start date and bring a calendar back to us for first reading.
And that could be a motion, which you just said if you'd like for it to be.
I'll make it as a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say, let's do a voice vote. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes or no, Ms. Case? Yes or no?
Yes.
I'm a yes.
Yes, sir.
Rudolph?
Yes.
Skowski? And Dr. Revis? No. All right, 6-1, it passes. And we will move on to bus driver license regulations. All right, you can take this away, Mr. Mark Garrett.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to share this again this evening. At our last meeting, we talked a little bit about our bus driver bonuses and our challenges in finding drivers. So I thought this evening I would share with you the bus driver license regulations, just so that you're clear on what kind of challenges we're facing. And then we also, not up for public consumption tonight, but we do have a draft letter that we will share that we polished up over the week and over the weekend, if you all are in favor of moving forward with a letter to whomever we can find to send it to. But as you go down through here, this is off the DMV website. So the school bus endorsements, it talks about to operate a school bus in North Carolina, all the way at the top, please. It's very clear there that you must be 18 years old, have at least 6 months of driving experience, have a school driving certificate or school bus driver certificate, and hold a CDL with both the S, which is a school bus, and P, passenger endorsement. To obtain that, you must be specially trained and pass an exam by a driver ed program specialist that demonstrates the fitness and competency required to operate a school bus. The requirements for the driver of a school activity bus are the same, except a school bus driver's certificate is not required. Now, the driving record has to be a clean driving record. Medical and physical examinations are there. That's part of the federal transportation stuff. Training and testing. Now, what I wanted to show specifically on the training and testing is you must successfully complete a 3-day school bus driver training class, pass up to 4 different knowledge tests with a score of an 80% or better on each test, successfully complete the required behind-the-wheel training with the driver ed program specialist, and then pass a skills test, which is the driving test. If we stay with that section for a little bit, this has been one of the biggest challenges. So the pandemic obviously offered a lot of challenges with a lot of our folks who were retired from one profession or another, who weren't driving, went home, did not come back for various reasons. Also with the salaries that we offer compared to what some of the other public entities are offering now and private sector is offering have been challenging as well. But one of the biggest frustrations is right here. So you have to do the 3-day school bus driver training class, which is offered only periodically, pass up to those knowledge tests. But the third one is really the biggest sticking point for us right now, and that's completing the behind-the-wheel training with the driver ed program specialist. So there is one driver specialist, training specialist for Henderson County and Transylvania County. So in essence, we get about 4 days every 2 weeks, about 4 days every couple weeks. And then one of those days he's doing renewals. So to get brand new drivers, there's less than 10 days a month that we can be doing training, and you have to do 3 days. They've also lowered the amount of folks who can do the training at one time. So in essence, you have a clog right there because of some of the requirements that are now in operation that may or may not have been there before. So one of the things that we have in the letter after speaking with Mr. Klump is one on the training side to talk about getting a full-time trainer in these counties. And at this point, I would think even if you're a small county, it would help to have a full-time trainer, or at least not pair some of your larger counties with some of your other medium-sized counties. So that is in that letter. Also, some pieces on the salary so that we can be more competitive, because to remind everybody, state buses are the state's responsibility. The yellow buses are the state's responsibility. And that's why you would need to make that ask at that state level. So the fees, also, as you go down through there, it costs quite a bit to do that. Now, we will reimburse for those things when you certify, but just to get some folks in is not the only issue that we're facing. It's some of the regulatory pieces, and that is what we have contained in that letter. So I would be glad to entertain any questions, but just wanted to give a little bit of a follow-up and context to the conversation that sparked during the September meeting.
Because the school bus issue came up at our Pathways for Disconnected Youth meeting, Commissioner McCall said they definitely would like to sign off on the letter as well. I don't know if it's going to be the same letter.
Sure.
Or they'll write their own.
Yeah, we can add groups.
She was very interested in doing that.
Perfect. We know we have to do something. I mean, we have to, right? I'm not sure a letter's going to be it. Might have to go down to Raleigh, start knocking on some doors, but I've never known letters to do too much, but I'm willing to try whatever you guys think we can do to help push us along. Any other comments, questions? As far as who to send it to, I think we sent it to our state reps. Of course, we'll have some new ones here in a little bit. So go ahead and have those on hand to get ready to send those to the new ones. But anybody with which one to look at it, we'll send it to them.
Mr. Garrett, is DOT not in charge of the bus drivers?
DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles.
But DOT has nothing to do with it down in Raleigh.
No, it's through the Department of Motor Vehicles, ma'am. They're the licensure agency and the regulatory agency.
All right, if there's nothing else, we'll move on to new business. First up is going to be the initial budget discussion, Mr. Bernie Sosha.
All right, good afternoon. And it's October.
It
We're
is.
presenting a budget.
I know, that's kind of wild, right?
This has not happened in quite some time.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be a new trend. Maybe they'll get the budget out in June next year and we can talk about this in August.
Don't get ahead of yourself. Took 3 years to get this one.
That's right. But I am happy to present this to you guys this evening in October. Total budget we're looking at this year right now is $165,794,000. That's actually not going to be the complete budget once we get couple more pieces of federal funding, which aren't even listed in here yet because they haven't released them yet for the year. Title I and actually one of our big, our Esser 2 money is not included in this because they have not approved it yet at DPI. So that'll be coming to you hopefully in the first budget amendment. They'll get that to us. But other than that, this is what we believe to be the complete budget to get us started for this fiscal year. Not a lot of difference if you just look at it. It looks like it's a little bit less, but like I mentioned, we have those 2 large federal program pieces that are not here yet. So that's why it looks like a decrease, and that's why you look at, and we spent down a lot of Esser funds last year that are not coming back this year. So we anticipate our budget to actually be decreasing each year, so that's not a sign of a problem. Just want to let you know that as you're looking at it, if you compare to last year. But this does include raising all of the salaries up to the minimum $15 an hour, as well as applying the 4% increase to all the average to all the certified, and the minimum 4% to all the non-certified employees as well.
Your department's had a lot to do over the last 2 years.
Nah.
Like your work has just totally increased with the raise, which, I mean, it's all good things.
Good things,
Raises
absolutely.
given, and the Esser money, and all the bonuses that you had to put out at certain times, and it's, thank you to your department. You guys have done an amazing job.
I will pass that along to them.
So
Wonderful job.
I do have some questions, though.
Yes.
All right, so basically the piece of the pie that we as a school board are in control of is the local current expense, correct?
Correct.
All right, so for 2022-23, you're looking at 35 million, which is up 2 million and some change, 2.2 million and some change. How much of that 2.2 is coming from fund balance?
There is just a smidge over $1 million of fund balance in the local and other restricted funds portion of that this year. That is a combination of a whole lot of things, parts of which are part of what went into fund balance. We got probably $1 million, 1.7, 1.8 million added into fund balance is what we're looking at from last year. And part of that is because it just didn't get spent yet. We had a lot of things that they couldn't get done, and they got pushed into the new year, so they are included as fund balance. There were a couple things that came about post-budget request, and even at the very beginning of this year that we had some pieces. One of the biggest pieces outside of salaries, which I'll talk about in a second, was our workers' comp audit. Because we had to include all of the bonuses that we paid last year, when they came just a few weeks ago, they came and looked at all of our salaries over the last year, which exceeded our anticipated from a year and a half ago. So they then hit us with a $111,000 increase to the workers' comp bill alone, on top of what we were already slated to pay. So that, we did not have a place for that in the current budget request, so that's $111,000 of the fund balance piece alone. The salaries and benefits is over $600,000 for a couple of reasons. One, they went to 4%. We had asked for 2.5%. The state did a 4%. So we knew we had a gap in there, and then they increased the retirement rate higher than they had originally planned to do, and that applied to all of our salaries in local, and then it impacted our local supplement because we have to put retirement on top of the local supplement. So beyond the $1 million that we were given for an increase in salary and benefits, it then fell way short of what we are going to need this year. Again, good problem to have, and we are in a very healthy position to be able to absorb that and not even use what we added to fund balance last year, which was already over $5 million to begin with. So those are two of the biggest pieces that have led to that $1 million coming out of fund balance for this year.
So we asked for essentially $1 million too short from the county if we didn't want to touch fund balance to pay for the non-controllables. Essentially.
Essentially, yeah.
And what do you anticipate? I know going forward, we were at 4% this year, but is 2.5% a good number going forward as far as increases for hospitalization, workers' comp, increase in pay? Or is that not going to suffice anymore?
We're not gonna be able to suffice having $1 million to cover our increases every year. That, which a few years ago, $1 million covered salary and benefit increases and 1 or 2 initiatives. Now, $1 million won't cover the salary and benefit increase.
This board just has to keep that in mind when we get back over to budget time and we start sending that stuff out after the first of the year.
And you need to be very vocal about it.
On
so
why
that
we're
they-
doing it.
Right, they know, because I know typically it's like, well, it has been said, why are you always ask for $1 million more? Like what, why is that the magic number? Well, it's gonna go up
It's not a
now.
magic number anymore.
Right, right.
It was yesteryear's magic number.
Right. And also, because you only have me for 6 more weeks, not that I'm counting down my time. But if this bonus thing ever comes up with whatever, hopefully never, a pandemic and what we've been through, but just for any reason, and we have $500,000 to shell out, somebody needs to be in the back yelling, okay, but we need to, what's our workers' comp increase going to be on that? And then you only have $400,000 to give out because we're going to have to save for that. I never, that's the first time they got me, like, in our business. Well, you didn't report bonuses. Why? I was like, well, they weren't working. It's a bonus. They didn't do anything. I just gave it to them for Christmas.
Yep.
And they're like, nope, that counts too. Here, give us more money, so I didn't even think about that here.
Well, hopefully, I'd like for you and your department, you guys do a bang up job. The crystal ball is a little bit off last year, but that's all right. We'll let you slide for a year. Kind of get ahead of that, of what that's going to look like. And I know it's always anticipating what the state may do, and you never know what the state's actually going to do. But really, so we can have some better numbers. So like Amy's saying, they're not like, hey, we're already giving you $1 million, but it's $2 million every year to cover it. And that number is going to increase every year. It's as simple as that. And property values are going up really high this year, so they're going to have a couple more bucks in their pocket. Any questions for Bernie? Enterprise funds, childcare, nutrition, anything like that? Federal grants? Awesome. Thanks, sir.
All right, thank you, guys.
All right, next up. Do what?
Do please take a motion on it, though.
Oh, yes, yes, sir. I'll take a motion. Hold on, let me get back there. Where's it at? Would anybody like to make a motion?
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the initial budget resolution for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023.
Is there a second? Second, Mrs. Holt. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It passes.
Thank you.
There you go. All right, North Henderson Athletic Lights. I feel like we've been talking about this one for a while, but I'm excited that it looks like we might have some actual movement on this. So, Mr. Carl Taylor?
Yes, good afternoon, board members. As you all know, we've been talking about the North Henderson Lights at their softball and baseball field for over a year. This was part of our discussion last fiscal year. We received an initial quote that exceeded our expectations at that time, and so you as the board directed us to go and seek out some other options that may exist so that we have a better understanding of what the market is for this project. And so what I have for you tonight is a proposal that we received from Camp Electric, who has done quite a bit of work in both North and South Carolina. And so they've presented to us 2 options. Option 1 is the one that is in line with what the board discussed for this current fiscal year, which is the softball, or actually option 2 is the one that's in line with what this board approved for this fiscal year, which would just be the softball field for this fiscal year, and then looking at adding the baseball field next fiscal year. They went ahead and provided us option 1, which is doing them all at one time. And so what I'd like to do is talk through this and then answer any questions that you may have about these 2 options. So for option one, Camp Electric has provided us a lump sum turnkey price for the baseball and softball fields of $432,684. This would also include an ad alternate for wireless remote control lighting of $11,000. And that is an ad alternate that we would definitely recommend, as that would provide the school with the option to turn those lights on and off using their smartphone or a computer device. Option two is the one where they've provided us the price for just the softball field this fiscal year, and that price of $164,825. This would include some infrastructure for the baseball field as well. Then, right now, the current price for the baseball field in next fiscal year would be $299,859. The ad alternate for wireless remote control is still there of $11,000, but please notice that this option would cost $32,000 more than option one due to the extra freight, remobilizing equipment for crane, boring machines, trenching, and labor. So cost effective to do it all at once, but again, it's what the board had set aside for this fiscal year was just the softball field. So those are two options that we can consider at this time, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Several questions.
Yes, sir.
We have two sets of lights coming off of the budget this year. What's the total for those two? Those two leases? Yeah, for the whole lease.
I'm sorry, we did it, it was just under $250,000 for the full lease for both fields.
So that's two softball fields,
That was two fields, yep.
and that was done. But that lease comes off this fiscal year, correct?
Correct.
Yes, and I believe that's about $45,000 per field. Is that
That's
correct?
like 90 grand.
Yeah, that's what we have for the budget for this year, yeah.
Okay, and do we have anything else budgeted right now for these lights?
Yes, what the board approved in this year's budget is $40,000 for the softball field. There's carryover from last year's budget where we had set aside around $75,000 for both fields. So currently we should have right around $115,000 that is technically budgeted for this project.
So how would you guys suggest paying for the rest of the 300,000?
I'll let Mr. Socia jump in here in a second, but I also know that there is some carryover.
Yeah, option one. On option one, if we chose to do option one lump sum, do the ad alternate. There is another piece to this that I'd like to talk about, but let's talk about option one. How do we pay for it?
The remaining part, I would say we could take from Fund 4, fund balance, the capital project fund balance, has leftover project money from the last 2 years that are in there that would cover it. If you didn't want to use capital funds specifically, we do have the other pot of money from where the playgrounds are coming from that would also allow us to provide funds as well from a fund balance standpoint or from collecting indirect costs.
So the first option was from capital fund balance. So you're looking at projects such as that we saved money on. So we've saved $300-something thousand on Hendersonville High School, Edneyville, so on and so forth.
We have,
While he's calculating, did I hear you correctly that the last softball field we did was 45,000?
We did a
That was the annual lease cost.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we paid for those.
was what, 3 years?
They said once we sign a contract, they can mobilize very quickly with current intentions to have both installed prior to the start of the new season.
Would you scroll down to page number, the end of page 3 on our, yep, scroll down, scroll right there, bam, not included in price. Okay. So this is the only part that makes me a little bit nervous, and it's on any, and I get it, it's on any project. So these poles are 70 foot tall. You got to stick them 10 foot into the ground, and then 60 foot sticking up. So they've got to clearly excavate that. They've got to trench it so they can run power, all of that jazz. So we have to pay the power company, correct?
Yes, sir.
How much does that cost?
I don't have that number with me today.
That's a pretty important number. And then next, if we run into rock or unsuitable soils, they're going to stop everything and then come back and tell us how much that costs. Right? And that's,
Yes, sir, and that's standard on any project with lights.
so we would be pretty smart here if we did this project to put a nice chunky little contingency on top of this of at least 10%, I would say.
I always suggest a 10% contingency to cover anything that you don't know.
And so you're looking at $500,000 is what these two lights are going to cost now. Right? So do we have enough money in leftover capital to pay for, so we've got 115, right?
Yes, sir.
So $385,000-ish.
Right, and we have, we had put money aside to do the ADA seating, which we got grant money to use instead. We could turn that money, we had $130,000 in that. We still have $90,000 left in our contingency alone from last year in capital, and there's still a little bit of the athletic capital money
How much?
as well.
Because that's 220,
Yeah, I think we had 40 left in that line.
like 260. So we still got to come up with $100,000-ish.
Or anything.
So you said there were two other pots of money that we could pull from. So we're trying to do this without getting any other, go up the street, ask for any money, try to find ways to do this in our own capital if possible. It's kind of what I'm looking at, if that makes sense.
Now, is this on our Mr. T's money in, like, next year?
I don't think so, right?
I don't think so.
So what we did is we had stopped looking at that, but no, where did that,
So as part of our local capital budget for this current,
not Mr. T.
not from the MRTS funds.
Okay, so then, I mean, not we, but are y'all gonna ask for some of it in local next year? That way you can pull from fund balance and then put it back.
My thing is this, if we can find enough cash for us to do it right now, then we go ahead and do it within our capital that we have remaining. We've had a great influx of cash, federal dollars come in for the, help me here, the playgrounds and all of that stuff. We've had a lot of influx of cash, and we've got $5 million before we spend another $1 million on our salaries and whatnot this year. So you still have $4 million in fund balance, which is a chunky fund balance. I mean, that's 12% or so of local current expense. That's pretty good. So do you think you can find enough pots of money to pay for $500,000 without anything getting squirrely in our fund balance?
Absolutely.
Any other questions on this?
So I'm just gonna say, oh, I'm sorry. I like this and I want to do this, but I have a real problem spending this chunk of money when you have Upward sitting right here and their site isn't even secure. I want to do this like yesterday.
Yeah, I think the problem with those two projects is that, one, we have control over, i.e. this, and two, it seems to me that when we choose a project, it gets lost up the street sometimes.
Correct.
When those are supposed to be done. Now, I think we've got a new superintendent here that's ready to get some things done up on the Upward project, I think, right?
Absolutely, we're ready.
But you're right. I mean, it's $500,000, and we need to be putting money into Upward as quickly as possible, but there are a lot of steps to go before we get there, to be honest.
I know. That was there.
I was going to say the same thing. It seems here we are finding ways of taking from this and taking from that so we can get baseball lights. And I don't mean to take anything away from that. But here we have a school that has been without an awning, and that's getting taken care of. And I know we're going to discuss that coming up. But, I feel I can hear the parents and the teachers in the back of my head, just going over and over and over, and them listening to this and like, what about me?
Yeah.
So
I think the upper project, the money's already allocated. The money's there. It's just they have been really slow, as in like 4 years slow, on getting the project actually done.
well, but
And I think that's a big problem that this school board has, is not being in control of all of our capital projects, period. This is one that we could be in control of. We're not going up the street to ask Dad for cash to come and pay for some lights and go through the thing. If we have some money left over, we can do this ourselves.
and I
We don't have
agree.
many options on other stuff like that.
And I agree. I just don't want the perception to be that, we, prefer or give our attention to other schools.
Sure.
When we all know what's been going on with Oakwood for years.
Yeah.
And that was what I was gonna say as well. Jay and I had a school visit out there this last week, and they really do feel like they have been looked over and looked over and over. And I don't think the school and the staff understand that there's some funds we have control over and funds we don't. But the bottom line is, I'm concerned that they've been looked over for this awning, this simple awning, for 4 years now, or however long it's been.
The awning's been a year. The awning gets done when?
So the materials arrive next week, and we are scheduled for the following week. So 2 weeks from right now is when that should be installed.
That is amazing.
So I know we're skipping ahead and it's not about
No,
this.
I'm sorry, I did it.
No, it's legitimate, right? So let's say this. Let's say we could take over and we had $1.5 million to do Upward right now. How long would it take for us to get that project completed? Because we're still it seems like we've gone backwards and backwards and backwards on that project. We had an architect, we had it all built out, it was chopped in half, then it was pulled away, you're not gonna do it because of COVID. Then all of a sudden, we're going back into it, then it's like, wait, we're not gonna do that, we need to do this. And now we're talking to another architect. Well, I guess it's the same architect. Is it the same architect? Again.
Yes, sir.
So how far away are we from actually doing something on Upward? Like actually moving dirt? Not the awning.
Yeah, the awning we can.
Awning's taken care of.
So my understanding is what I'm able to do today is present to you the projected numbers for budgeting for the Upward project, excluding the awning. So the secure entry, the cafeteria, and so I'll have that for you in the capital update tonight. Once we feel good about those numbers, then we can proceed with the county to schedule a joint facilities meeting to look at the MRTS funds and make sure that we align the funds in the right place so that Upward can proceed. Once that committee meets, then the county is able to begin the bidding process for that construction and proceed from there. So I don't have I unfortunately can't give you a
Yeah, I know.
specific
It was
timeline.
rhetorical in nature anyways. It's basically, we're starting back over again on that project.
Third time's the charm. right?
Third time. I mean, literally, like it's just starting again. So anyways, let's get back to this. Got $115,000 from money that's already budgeted. Mr. Sosha with his crystal ball says we've got $385,000 that's sitting in various buckets of fund balance that we could pay for this $500,000 right now if the board agreed.
Yeah,
You'd save some change, plus we got a 10% contingency. Actually, it's a little bit more than 10%. But I would say just level it at $500,000. That leaves you some room in there to do some things.
Now, as far as, do we just go to, how do we come up with this bid? Do we just give it to one person and they come up with this, or?
So the process we went through again, last fiscal year is whenever I brought to you a quote from Musco, who is on the state-approved contract list. And so
Okay,
that
that's
price that we received a year ago was $645,000 for both fields. And again, you all did not feel comfortable with that price and asked for us to go out and find some other ones. We received another quote from another vendor, which was a little over $500,000 is what they provided. And then Camp Electric, again, is another vendor that has done extensive work in both North and South Carolina. And so those were three vendors that we have received prices from so that we understand kind of what we're looking at in terms of price.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That approved vendor list gets an extra 15, 20% bump on that price then, huh? Because you don't have to go through the RFQ process, so they're like, hey.
Correct.
All right, Ms. Case, anything you'd like to add to this?
Thank you. Been fighting for this for 3 years.
You have. All right. Well, listen, it's a lot of money for some lights. I love baseball, but it is a lot of money for some lights, but I think it's the right thing to do. I think that, potentially here pretty soon, Hendersonville High School is going to have their own field, and they're going to have lights, and every other field in the county has lights, so it ain't going to get any cheaper than it is today. So, would anybody like to make a motion? Yeah. I'll accept the motion at any time. And we didn't talk about option 1 or option 2, but for me, it's option 1. Just pay for it, get it done, get it gone, let's go. Does anybody else disagree? And they said they can get these done before the season?
Yes, sir.
They could have them done before the beginning of this season. So, let's move on.
I move that the Henderson County Board of Education, Public Education approve option 1 for the purchase of installation of lights at North Henderson baseball and softball fields.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Sosha, once we get all this thing going, I'd like to see where those pots of money came from. Oh, they're not cheap on this thing.
You know what I mean?
They're not cheap. All right. It's a lot cheaper. It's LED lights. All right. Esser update, Mr. Scott Rhodes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
So this is a slide deck that you've seen often over the last year or so. I just want to hit some highlights again this month as we go back looking through our Esser funds. Just as a reminder, those Esser funds from Esser 1s expired September 30th of 2022. So we're looking at Esser 2 and Esser 3. Esser 2 funds are going to expire in 2023, and then 2024, the Esser 3 funds. Again, at least 20% of those funds must be used to address learning loss through interventions that respond to students' and academic, social, and emotional needs. And as you'll see, as you go through that, you will begin to see again through these allocations to date where that money has been spent. You see the different strategic uses that have been completed, the actual budget and the expenditures. What I would bring to your attention, just to, again, as a reminder, as we start thinking about those additional school nurses positions, just to keep that on your radar, those 5 positions right now is a 3-year commitment, but that money will end again in 2024. And so again, that and also the social worker positions, that 2-year commitment that we have put 5 social workers into the Esser budget, that also will end in 2024. So just a couple things to keep you up to date. And then just again, those Esser 1 details, really proud to say that we've expended all of those funds. Not only have we expended all those funds, but we have worked with our private school partners to help make sure that they have paid and used all those funds. So we're not sending any money back to the federal government. And that's always a good thing. Any questions?
I do have a quick update for the board on those nursing positions. I had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Smith last week, and he is committed to making that request in his budget to the county once the Esser money sunsets, so that you do not lose service with your school nurses. So was actually happy to hear that, and I think he's going to take that as part of his 4-year budget.
It's good to hear. All right. Mr. Taylor, you're back up. Construction update.
All right, so for this month's capital update, I will begin with the video management or the security cameras for our elementary schools. Last board meeting, I'd given you these dates of the first pre-bid meeting and the second pre-bid meeting and the bid opening. So that all took place last month. And so this is an MRTS project, which means everything is running through the county. They have identified the lowest bidder for this project, and so they are ready to proceed at, I believe, their next meeting to approve a contract so that this work can then begin. So the ordering of those cameras and then the installation soon to follow thereafter, of course, supplies being available. For our middle and high schools, that same project that was approved in last year's MRTS funds, the installation did begin the first week of September and has continued since then. The installation has started taking a little bit longer than Haynes Electric had intended, so they've provided a second crew to speed up the installation process. We were hopeful that that installation could be completed by the end of this month, but now it's looking more likely that it will run into November. So right now our target is hopefully going to be that Thanksgiving break is when all of these cameras should be installed. The initial feedback that I've received as schools have started to see these be installed and be able to look at the quality is that they are overly excited to have these, but then also just the quality of the cameras has been praised. So really look forward to that project being complete so that we can see it at all of our middle and high schools. So bringing upward back up, this came up in our last conversation I was up here at the podium for. And so again, with the Upward Elementary project, the architect from Clark Nexon and then engineers from WGLA have provided us with initial budget numbers as we again get ready to put this project out for bid. And so the budget numbers that Clark Nexon provided for just the construction aspect, which is the cafeteria expansion and the secure entry, is a budget number just over $1.9 million. That includes contingency, architect fee as well as the construction. But that is what they've set aside as our budget number. WGLA provided the estimates for the paving. This includes the new front parking lot as well as repairing courtyard work. Whenever the construction company has to go in and expand that cafeteria, there's going to be damage to some asphalt as well as some concrete. And so that repair work is included in that line item. And then the other line item is for the new bus lot and staff parking area to be paved as well. So when we combine those three line items, that gives us a budget number for Upward Elementary of just shy of $2.5 million. Again, this is money that would run through MRTS with the county. And so next steps for us, if the board supports us proceeding with this, would be to schedule a joint facilities committee meeting with the county to review our MRTS months for this fiscal year. Then identify where this money will come from the MRTS budget. Once that is allotted, then the commissioners could approve this project and it'd be ready to go out to bid at that time. So I'll stop here.
Questions, but I think we'll go ahead and finish. Or
is it specifically about Upward?
Yes, sir.
Then I don't mind stopping right here because I know that this Upward Elementary is of major concern to each of you. So happy to stop right here and let you jump in with those questions.
I had a question on, have you done any figuring on what that is per square foot? That seems very high.
Yes, Ms. Holt. When just looking at the construction costs, so taking out the contingency, taking out the architect fee, they're basing it on 1,800 square feet there at Upward.
Is that for the cafeteria and secure entry?
Yes, sir. So
1,800?
And so when we look at that, that's roughly or right around $880 per square foot is what they are giving us as a budget.
But if you add in the contingency, you can go ahead and just add some zeros on the end of that. It's $1,000 a square foot.
Once you throw in, yes, the contingency and architect fees, yes, we're over
You just
1,000.
divide it, yeah.
Now, I don't do construction. What's a ballpark for construction? Does anybody know?
At least double what I'm hearing.
Yeah, right now it's $350 to $400 a square foot to do the type of work that we're looking to do here. It seems extremely expensive. The architect of record on this is Clark Nexon, who gave us these numbers, correct? Or actually didn't give us the numbers. They gave the county the numbers, and the county gave them to you, then they gave them to us.
Yes, sir.
Right. And then I think another problem that this board hasn't seen since this project's been tossed around too many times is what is it? What are we paying for?
So the two parts of the construction, one would be the secure entry, so that there is that 2-point entry. One, you get buzzed into the office, and then once you're in the office, then you can get buzzed into the main parts of the campus. And so it's restructuring their current office space to accommodate that. So that's not a change in square footage whatsoever for the school.
Just reconfiguring.
The cafeteria expansion is they have a courtyard that is in between two wings. Their cafeteria is very small, which means they got to start lunches very early and then they run for quite some time. So it would be enclosing that courtyard space in between those two wings so that the cafeteria could spill over from its current space into that new space.
1,800 square feet?
Yes, sir.
How long have the other schools had secure entries? Do you know?
This is our last one,
It's
right?
been a few years. You know, West is another project where we're trying to create that true two-point entry. So West, Henderson, and Upward were the final two.
Okay. And so again, just to refresh my memory, this money does come from the county, and has this been asked for in previous meetings, or?
Yes, sir. So my understanding.
Was it this
is a little bit
much?
Pre my time, but it was part of the MRTS from 2019-20 and was ready to go into contract right as COVID hit. And so the contract was withheld at that time and not signed to assess what COVID would do to the economy here in Henderson County. And then was revisited about in the 2021 budget year of trying to figure out how to get it going again at that point in time. But at this point in time, this project has never gone under contract to my understanding.
So, and again, I'm not the brightest bulb here, but it would the county shouldn't mind if we I mean, I don't know. I mean, what if we came back with a lower cost? Would that be okay, or not? Or what do we do? To me, that just sounds like a lot of money, and I'm trying to figure out we're trying to figure out how to get this, first of all, done, but second of all, get something that we can work with.
I think that these are the budget estimates, correct?
Yes, sir.
You can lower that number all you want. It's just a number. It's going to depend on what happens on bid day. And right now, bids are sometimes not even good for 48 hours. Paving falls right in line with petroleum and the price of oil and what's happening with OPEC. Architects will tell you that you may as well throw a dart at a dartboard. You just need to establish a budget and then see what happens on bid day. If this is too expensive, you can ask the architect to go back and look at it, but there's no way to decrease what it will cost. It will cost what it costs, and this is just their professional estimates of what they think you should put aside for bid day. And you do competitive bids, so.
What we need to do is this. We need to schedule a joint facility committee meeting promptly, next week or 2 weeks. We need to go over this extensively. I'd like to see what that actually means, the cafeteria expansion. How many seats does that get us? What will that do? Can we stop doing lunches at 10:30 and ending at 2 or whatever we're doing right now? What does that vestibule to the secure entry actually look like? Because this is all different than what we looked at 4 years ago. The whole thing. It's what we started with, and then it got cut in half, and then it's added back in, divided by 2, and now we're multiplying by 8. So if you guys could get us together, let's get with them, let the Joint Facility Committee kind of hammer this out and bring this back hopefully by next meeting. And let's get something on the books sooner rather than later. That's what I would ask for from this group.
Because I will just say the board as a whole discusses this constantly, and we recognize that Upward has been waiting and waiting and waiting. We want to do all that we can to make sure that this becomes quicker than.
Yeah, there's 3 things that I think the Joint Facility Committee meeting needs to talk about immediately. This has to be number 1, A, B, and C, right? The number 2 has to be the bus garage. So the last time that we left the bus garage off, it was going to cost $13 million and not $3.5 million. But the county manager hadn't heard that number by that point. He didn't know what was going on, and I haven't heard anything since then. And then the final one, and we've got some architects looking at it, is looking at West. And that's looking at adding the wing, fixing the front of West as well, doing some safety work there and seeing what that escalated number is, because we had budgeted, I think, $9 million in 2018. Well, we know it's going to be higher. So I want to really go over those 3 priorities. toss in a little Fletcher in there. See what's going on with Fletcher.
Oh, the.
EMS, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see if we can get this on the books quick. All right?
Yeah, I think so too, and I also want to remind this board that 4 years ago, we had an estimate from this architect that we were not going to get a gym and that we were going to get half of an auditorium, and their budget prediction was 11 million more.
Yeah.
We went with another architect, got all of that done, and came in under budget. So,
End of year early.
but yeah, my opinion is that this architect is very high.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Clark Nexon at all. I'll go ahead and say it on record. I don't care. I don't think they've done our county any favors. I think that we need to go in and we need to really look at this project. How is it going to help our kids? Figure out what the best way that is, and then price it from there. Not kind of the top down, and then here's what you get.
Right.
Because here, I still don't even know what we're getting. I really don't. For $1,000 a square foot, what are we getting? What does it look like? Any pretty pictures? No, haven't seen anything.
And I don't know if this board knows what the balance is in that MRTS fund. Assuming that all board members know what the fund is. 'Cause
I want to say it's a $1.5 million, right? There was 350,000 put aside, and there was another 1.1 put aside at a certain point in time. Bernie, am I somewhere near there? So I believe it was around $1.5 million is what was allocated for this money over the years, but there hasn't been a dollar spent yet. So we've got to get on the ball. The Joint Facility Committee. We'll get something to this board hopefully by next week or next month.
Obviously, this would eat all that up if that's the balance.
Plus a little something.
So those other items you mentioned will have to come from somewhere.
Have to come from somewhere. All right, I appreciate it. Let's move on to the next one.
All right. So next, the elementary playground project, again, that's coming through a federal grant. We've received the initial assessment from the engineers. They've gone to each of our elementary schools, evaluated the site, and have provided a quick recommendation of what they think is going to need to be done, and then also provided a quick budget number to provide as well, and what they think it would take to get their recommendations completed. So that we've received that recommendation. The next step that's being completed is site surveys. So the engineers have sent surveyors out to each of the sites as well to create an official survey of each playground. Once we have that, then we can finalize their recommendations, finalize the budget, and know exactly what each playground or what each school will receive in terms of their playground equipment. And then the other project that I continue to talk about, but never have really shown you any pictures, but now I can, is our maintenance warehouse. This was part of last year's MRTS budget. It's a 6,000 square foot warehouse, so it's providing much needed space for storage. The items that we were waiting on are the doors, the garage doors, those roll-up doors that you see there. There's one on each side of the building. And so those were installed here recently. Now we're just waiting on Duke Power to get out there and set the meter, and that project will officially be complete at that point in time. But really, at this point in time, it is usable as is. It just doesn't have lights that you can turn on.
Is this by Upward?
Yes, ma'am. So it's there at the warehouse site. If you want a tour of this, as well as the new freezer we installed last year, I'd be happy to take you.
Let's schedule that before I'm done and not allowed on property anymore.
Sounds good.
Before you take my badge.
We won't kick you off.
All right, so at this time, I'll take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, sir.
All right, you're very welcome.
All right, next up, Mr. Mark Garrett, low performing schools.
So for the first time in quite a while, we are talking about low-performing schools requirements that DPI has set forth in the State Board of Education based on the accountability measures that we got back a few weeks ago. The State Board just recently certified those numbers, so we now have about a month in play to put a plan in place for you, and then we'll bring that plan in November for approval, but thought I would take you all just kind of a refresher if you've heard it and it's been a while, or if you've not heard it before, on what we are looking at. So here are the basic requirements. This is defined by the NC General Assembly and based on school performance grade and EVOS growth. Currently, they use 80% performance and 20% growth. So those low-performing schools are those that receive a school performance grade of D or F and a growth score of met or not met expected. So if you are a D or an F and exceeded expected growth, you are not classified as a low-performing school. But if you meet the numbers that they expected you to meet, you're considered a low-performing school. One of the requirements of the law is the development of a school or district plan for improvement that specifically addresses the strategies the school or district will implement to improve both the school performance grade and the school growth designation. Again, that 80-20 split. These final plans then will be shared with the public, including parents, guardians, and staff, and will be made available through our website, and also they are on the NCDPI website, so anyone can go in and look at those. All plans are located in NC STAR, which we already utilize for our school improvement planning, so it is simply uploading or clicking a button and make sure those upload where they're supposed to go. So here, again, extrapolating that out a little bit, you have a plan for improvement of low-performing schools. That's general statute. If a school has been identified as low-performing as provided in this section, and the school is not located in a local school administrative unit identified as low-performing, the following actions shall be taken. So these are the requirements that we are under because over 50% of our schools are not considered low-performing, so we do not qualify as a low-performing district. Actually, we have 5 out of 23. So, step 1, superintendent shall proceed under this general statute. Within 30 days of the initial identification, we shall take one of the following actions. Recommend to the board that the principal be retained in the current position at the 5 schools that we have. Recommend that the principal be retained and a plan of remediation be developed. That's a personal plan of remediation, not just a school. Recommend to the local board the principal be transferred or proceed under that general statute to dismiss or demote the principal. And that certain conditions obviously apply to each one of those. So what you're looking at, again, is what we do with the school leadership specifically at these low-performing schools.
This kind of flabbergasts me because our schools are not testing out normally what they are, meaning
Correct.
they're a lot lower. Like, this is COVID. You know, this is not a reason of not having good leadership. So it's just, and it's not just our district. It's nationally. It's everywhere.
So over a third of the schools in the state have met the classification now, have met the designation.
Yes.
Designation as low performing, and you'll see that in the slide coming up. It will be my recommendation for number 1. I'll just be very clear to that now. Anybody listening, anybody hearing, anybody watching, and any of the principals who are watching, my recommendation is clearly going to be a recommendation number 1. We're going to retain those principals in those current positions. And I think it's also important to note, because tonight I was just talking in general about what we have to go through and bring before you in November, but your scores actually increased. So our scores in 21-22 increased over 20 and 21. But this is the first year that they have actually put a school letter grade on that we now have to go through this. So if they would have done this last year, you would have had even more schools who were designated as low performing. So yes, ma'am, you are correct that our scores increased as a district and at these schools on the performance measures, but you're still meeting that threshold based on the general statute.
And this is DPI doing this?
This is the state legislature.
Oh.
Is their designation. This is all in general statute.
So the state legislature says that if you have met expected growth, you're receiving a D.
No.
That's
What
the
they're saying is
DPI.
if your overall number, which is based 80% on performance and 20% on growth, so you get a number for performance and you get a rating for growth. So if your overall number school letter grade is a D or an F, and then your growth is either not met or met, then you're considered a low-performing school.
Okay.
So in essence, you have to exceed growth to not be a low-performing school and have a D or an F as your letter grade. And again, I would challenge anybody to come visit our schools and walk through our schools and show me a D or show me a D school in this, or really in this region. I won't just say in this county, I'll say in this region.
And I think pre-COVID, it was 488 schools. It's now 864. Wow. Statewide. So that shows you it's directly related to COVID.
And that was after the scores went up
Yeah.
from 2 years ago to last year. So step two, within 30 days of the initial identification of a school as low performing by the state board, again, that's what they met last week to do. The superintendent shall submit a plan to the local board for improving both the school performance grade and the growth score, including how the superintendent and other central office administrators will work with the school and monitor the school's progress. We are already in process of doing this. This was actually in process before the letter grades were released and before the growth scores were released. And that's why it's really nice to have a district that is already in NC STAR and that continuous improvement model, because all of that dovetails very, very nicely. So again, in November, this is what you will have in front of you for action. Parent notification, it talks very specifically here about what we have to do. They also contain within these resources some sample parent letters. I didn't include them tonight, but basically it says that we have 30 days to identify, or within the identification to notify our parents that the schools that where their student attends has been classified as low performing. So you have to do a statement that the Board of Ed has found the school has earned the school performance grade of a D or an F, and the growth scores that we talked about. We have to include the grade and the growth score, the information about the preliminary plan under the subsection and what we plan to do, the meeting date for when the plan will be considered by the local Board of Ed, which will be in November, and then a description of any additional steps the school is taking to improve school performance. So it's really in line with what you do anyway for your school improvement planning. It just adds this statutory requirement. Step three, within 30 days of the preliminary plan, you shall vote to approve, modify, or reject the plan. Before the local board votes on the preliminary plan, it shall make the plan available to the public. We will post it on the website, obviously. But we also have to make sure that all the personnel assigned to that school and the parents and guardians and allow for written comment. So much like a policy or anything, a calendar, you put out a first draft of that for almost like a first reading, solicit any comments, make those adjustments before the final approval. Then step four, the local board shall submit a final plan to the state board within 5 days of the approval. The state board shall review the plan expeditiously. That is open to interpretation. And if appropriate, may offer recommendations to modify the plan. Now, having done this off and on in a previous district, I can tell you that your plan is not going to be the first ones that they're looking at. They will start with the school districts that, some of which are 75 or 80% of their schools are low performing, and then they work down their list from there. I anticipate, I was talking with Dr. Marlowe this morning, I anticipate almost getting an email from the Office of School Support saying, we don't have the resources to come out and serve everybody, so if you need us, call us. And that's what I anticipate for Henderson County. So submitting the plan, right there, all low-performing school plans are submitted through NC STAR, so it'll be very easy. Basically, the morning after the approval by the board, we'll just make sure that those are designated and uploaded. And then there are some resources there for anyone who cares to dig through all of those details. And all of this is on the DPI website. So just for clarity, schools designated as low performing in Henderson County Public Schools. And again, I'm emphasizing designated as low performing. Apple Valley Middle, who had a D and did not meet. Clear Creek, D and did not meet. Edneyville, D and did not meet. Sugarloaf, D and did not meet. And then Upward, D, but they did meet growth. But because of the caveat that you have to exceed, they received that designation as well. I have no doubt that this is a short-lived list as we continue to move forward, but just wanted to make sure that everybody was clear as to who we were looking at, who's already started this work alongside Dr. Marlowe and the instructional team, and really as part of their school improvement process as well. So that's what I wanted to make sure that we covered tonight. Be glad to entertain any questions, but let you know your look for next month will be the actual plan for approval, and then we will upload it in November.
I would be really curious to know what percent of students at those schools stayed and were doing online school. So at some of our schools, I remember us being shocked last year at how many of the parents at Edneyville specifically kept their kids virtual instead of bringing them in. We thought it would be opposite. So I wonder, what the case is with those. If they had a lot of virtual kids, you cannot learn the same online that you do in school.
Or lack of access to internet early
Yes.
on during the pandemic.
Well, certainly as part of this process, we'll be looking at all that data. You're going to be looking at socioeconomic data, all of those things as you go through and look in, and already that's continuing and ongoing. What's most interesting to me, Ms. Holt, is as I've looked at the statewide data, none of the virtual academies that I have found have met or exceeded growth. All of them did not meet.
Wow.
And my previous district had one school that did not meet growth, and it was our virtual academy. So it's just not the same as being face-to-face, and I don't think that surprises anyone, and certainly one of those things. So here's what I will say that I have said previously in my career. This is a temporary place that we're in. I feel confident about the growth that we will see this year because it feels more like a normal school year than we've had in a long, long time. The instructional team is on top of this, but more importantly than that, the schools are already digging in and have been digging in well before this data showed up, which I'm very, very impressed and very thankful.
Okay, look forward to seeing it next month.
Thank you.
Equity update, Dr. Shannon Marlowe. Yeah. Oh, nice.
Great. All right. So you might remember a couple years back, there was a big discussion about, our community looks one way, our schools look one way, our student body looks a different way. So what do we need to do to merge the two and make sure that the students in our buildings have role models in front of them? So there were lots of different conversations going on. On our end, it was teaching as a profession, but we had some community members who were looking at the grow our own idea. So we're going to do a really quick review of that, and then I'm going to tell you where we are. It's kind of exciting. So how did it come to be? So the goal, of course, was to have a staff that reflects our student body and our community. We started the Teaching as a Profession class, serving all 4 of our high schools. Henderson County Education Foundation initiated the Grow Our Own Educational Assistance Fund, and that was in partnership with some of our other community members. So we call our class Teaching as a Profession, TAP. Last year was the first year. It's an honors course, CTE course. This year, we will be having TAP 1 and TAP 2, which also includes a field experiences class. So I have just a little bit of data. Last year, we had 2 teachers, Sam Henry and Anna Lord, each served 2. This year, we have Sam Henry is back with us. Suzanne Meadows has now taken on the role that Anna Lord held last year. You'll notice our class demographics are not quite where we'd like them to be, but we are starting to kind of dig our heels in and feel like we're getting some momentum. So things are starting to shift a little bit, which is good. Even including our male and female attendance is starting to look a little bit better. We want, again, our teaching staff to look like our kids. They need to have somebody that they can look up to. And so if we are looking at a 25% increase this year in overall class enrollment, that to me says we're headed in the right direction. So how do we continue to grow this program and grow these classes? Well, it has to be done in partnership, and I know Peggy Marshall's sitting back there with the Education Foundation, and you'll start to see some photographs sprinkled throughout of actual kids in actual classrooms learning how to be teachers or exploring what that looks like. So we're going to talk about that in just a second, but the Education Foundation has jumped in. Over the summer, they started offering scholarships. So they were offering scholarships to graduates of Henderson County Public Schools or current staff members who have an interest in becoming a member of a teaching staff or counselor or something like that. So they have the requirements that are there. But the best part about this are the pictures. So what you'll see right there is our student award winner for the scholarship. He was a high school senior at West Henderson, Josh Strickland. Every winner of these scholarships also has an education mentor. So for example, Josh's education mentor is Preston Blakely, who's our mayor of Fletcher. I love that that's a full-length picture. I don't know how that happened, but he looks awesome there. I'm just saying. Might be the West colors in the background. Sorry.
Easy, Dr. Marlowe, easy on that.
We also had 4 staff members in our own schools who were awarded scholarships. So we always just call her Evelyn, but Evelyn Angeles Alarcon is in the HCPS ESL department. She is absolutely phenomenal. She is also currently enrolled at Blue Ridge Community College. She's working on her associate's degree for Human Services, Technology, and Social Work. You'll also see Chris Wilson. He's currently an assistant principal at Hendersonville High School and also enrolled at North Greenville University. He is working on his doctorate in educational philosophy and leadership. Liliana, I think someone already mentioned her today. She's amazing. Liliana Martinez Salgado. She is the receptionist. If you walk in Upward Elementary, always get a smiling face. She's amazing with parents, with students, with staff. She's also a support for our migrant education program. She's currently enrolled Blue Ridge Community College, and she wants to become a teacher in elementary school, I believe. I hope. Got my fingers crossed. And then Joanna Bosch Diaz, she is one of our instructional assistants at Hillendale, and also another support for our migrant ed program. She is enrolled at Grand Canyon University and wants to be an ESL teacher. So these are our winners for this year. Absolutely amazing folks already giving to us, but want to do more. And we love that the Education Foundation and their group has provided them an opportunity to be able to do that. So the class itself that Josh was enrolled in, one of the things that they did last year with Sam Henry and Anna Lord talked about, why is this class important? And the things that they had to say were more about what it took for collaboration, working together, than about teaching itself. It was about things like, now I understand why my teachers did that. It helped me to learn to be a better student. It created a place for collaboration and a safe space. There was a lot about being in a safe space to learn about themselves. And I just love that that's the kind of positive impact that this class has. But then also this year, this class has already started. So Suzanne Meadows had sent me some quotes. She has already pushed out her folks into a couple of the schools this year and talked about why is teaching important, and looked at comments about caring about students first, helping students learn about themselves, and what teachers matter to them. What did teachers do that made an impact on them? And those are the kinds of things that kind of hook you in if you want to be a teacher. So I love that. And just some of the pictures we have here, you'll see East Henderson on the left. They were visiting with both the counselor and the bookkeeper, finding out not just what they do in the classroom, but what they do in all the roles in the building. All of us have to have a part if we're going to make a safe space and a happy one for our students. And then you'll see a student there teaching at Dana Elementary last year, and then Anna Lord and a group of her folks at the Education Foundation Hall of Fame dinner last spring. So we are trying to pick up speed with this class, and one of the things that this year has taught us is we need to get the word out more to our students so that they know what opportunities are available to them. Questions? All right.
It's really awesome.
Yep.
Appreciate it so much. Child Care Services update, Mr. Scott Rhodes.
I'll make this brief. Giving a child care update for the financial projections of September. We had a revenues of almost $113,000, expenses $90,277, with an operational profit of $22,378.78. Thank you.
And finally, financial statements, Bernie.
Okay, got two of them for you. Local current expense and other restricted funds, as of September 30. Revenues coming in as expected. We got $9.6 million in revenues, and we have already spent almost $6.3 million so far this year. And this is an expected increase that we've had, and since we have our budget in place, and since we also have the salaries in place, we know that this is what we expect to be spending, so we're able to track that all the way from the beginning of the year, so that is awesome. The other report is for the capital outlay fund, echoing kind of what you already saw about the capital projects. Our revenues are coming in $450,000, and we have spent $652,000. Just point out that $400,000 of that is carryover projects from last year, and we've spent about $250,000 on the current year project so far. Thank you.
Questions? All right, any general operations, Mr. Garrett?
So quite a few things to share this evening. And first of all, it's National School Lunch Week this week. Certainly appreciate all of our school nutrition professionals who serve over several million meals a year when you add breakfast and lunch together, which is quite a number to try to wrap your head around. But we celebrate that October 10th through the 14th. So thank your lunch person. That was one of the things in school that I was able to do okay at, was lunch. Hispanic Heritage Month continues. That's September 15th through October 15th. So this is a week that wraps that up. Several things have taken place all across the district. I've seen quite a few things on social media, and certainly love to see that. October is Principal Appreciation Month. So we've got a photo here of all of our principals and really highlighting a principal team each day for the remainder of the month. Appreciate Kimber Airwood putting that together. And one of the things that is nice is that we have a great crew and we want to celebrate them. So thank those folks when you see them. October 13th is our Superintendent Teacher Advisory Council. That's our second meeting of the season. And then we have also the Golf Classic. The Education Foundation Golf Classic is October 17th. So that'll be next week as well at Champion Hills. Is that the 17th or the 18th?
17th.
That's right, 17th, it's Monday.
Hitting some balls?
No, but I did see an opportunity for me to volunteer and contribute some of my other services. So I'm going to get online and, I don't know, they may let me park a cart. I bet I can clean your spikes, if nothing else. Clubhouse attendant, I'm not sure what they'll do. Are there porta-johns to clean?
It's pretty nice out there.
Okay.
Porta-johns.
All right, all right, so just, I am of service, sir, I am of service.
Perfect.
October 20th, Superintendent Parent Advisory Council will be our second meeting. One of the things that I will say about the Parent Advisory, we were looking at doing a bi-monthly meeting, and they really wanted to meet every month, and they had a lot to say and a lot to discuss, so really excited to be with them. October 28th is our Professional Development Day, so that'll be no school for students. I'm going to remind folks and tell parents out there to get ready. You'll have a 4-day week and a 3-day weekend going into Halloween, so good luck with that. November is Veterans History Awareness and National Homeless Awareness Month. November 9th, we will have our school tours for the board. We will be seeing Hendersonville Elementary, Glen Marlowe Elementary, and Flat Rock Middle next month. Veterans Day holiday for all staff and students, November the 11th. Good trivia there. That is the only day you cannot attend school in the state of North Carolina, according to the law. So if y'all want to have school on Christmas, that's fine by you. I will not be here for that because I don't want to get run out. And then November 14th through the 18th is American Education Week. And then finally, the board's regular meeting for November will be at 4 o'clock on November the 14th. And that is my update for this month.
Awesome. Anybody have anything else they'd like to add before we get out of here? Sweet. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're out of here. Thank you.